One of the things that I started doing early on when we were homeschooling was every year I picked what I called our family theme verse for the year. What I would do is I would spend all summer in God's Word and just kind of listening to different sermons and trying to figure out what God was calling us to do that year. So maybe a particular promise from His Word about our family or a particular command He was calling us to do. And then by the end of the summer, it was clear what our family verse would be. And then what I would do is I would print that verse everywhere. I put it in my prayer journal. I typed it up. I hung it around the house. I put it on our little chalkboard. I made the kids memorize it, and I memorized it with them. Also, I put it in my lesson plan book, so when I was planning our lessons every week, I could pray that verse over our family. And so some examples, like one year we were having some issues with, the kids not wanting to do their best while we were doing our schoolwork. And so I felt like God was really calling us to use Colossians 3:23 for our family yearly verse. Another example was I just felt God was telling me this particular year that we were standing on holy ground. And so our yearly verse for that year was Joshua 5:15. And then once I picked out a family verse for the year that I felt God was calling us to do, then I would concentrate on each kid. So I did have a yearly verse for each student as well. And so what I would do is I would do the same process where I would just pray all summer for God to let me know what it was that He really wanted each of my kids to focus on that year, or what kind of particular promise or command He was giving each of the kids. So for example, one year I just knew I love wine and Risotto. Okay, I just knew the year ahead of my daughter. She was going to have some very challenging and hard things that she was going to have to do. And so I felt like God was calling me to Joshua, whereas do not fear, do not be dismayed, I will be with you wherever you go. One year, for example, my son was really struggling with his dyslexia. And so, we did Philippians. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And he loved that verse so much, he had it even embroidered into his baseball mitt. So every time he played, he could see that verse in his mitt. Another example was Joe's senior year. I knew that he was going to be, around things. And so I really felt God was calling me to Isaiah 30:21, the verse about, if you hear left or the right, but hear the voice behind you, the command to walk this way. And so I would pick a yearly verse for each of my kids as well. And then once I picked out a verse for each of my kids, something I felt the Lord was calling them to that particular year, I did the same thing. I printed it everywhere. I put it in their to-do notebook. I put it in their prayer journals or their Bible journals. I made them memorize it when they were younger. It was their copy work. And then, of course, I prayed that verse over them either when I was prepping for that week or when I was just praying for my kids in the morning each day. And so my suggestion to you is pick out a family Bible verse for the year to be your theme verse, and then go ahead and try and pick out a theme verse for each of your kids. It really will keep you on your path for the year and keep you in touch with what God's plans are for the year. All right, have fun.